You take a wrong turn and end up inside the Olympic exclusion zone, a place where you pretty quickly figure out you probably shouldn't be. Almost immediately, escape becomes the goal, but escape isn't straightforward. The zone doesn't behave like a normal place, and walking out is not an option. What you do find is a car that the game refers to as a remnant. It's old, temperamental, and somehow capable of surviving conditions that shred everything else. That car becomes your way forward. From there, the structure settles into a rhythm. You head out on runs into unstable areas, gathering resources, scanning strange phenomena, and trying to leave before the zone decides you've overstayed your welcome. Each run feeds back into the garage, where progress happens piece by piece, often under the watchful commentary of three scientists who never quite agree on what the correct plan is. They guide you, they argue with each other, and occasionally sound like they're making things up as they go. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're unconvincing. Either way, they form a constant background presence while you push deeper into the zone and uncover what it's actually doing, why the car works, and how any of this is supposed to help you escape. At first glance, Pacific Drive looks like a survival game that happens to include a vehicle. That surface level read lasts for about 5 minutes. Very quickly, the game makes it clear that every mechanic, every risk, and every moment of relief flows through the condition of your car. The car dictates the pace of the entire experience, how fast you drive, how far you push into unstable areas, and how long you can stay out before retreating depends on what shape the car is in. A clean, fully repaired car invites curiosity, a battered one encourages restraint. The game constantly nudges you into reading the vehicle's condition and adjusting your behaviour around it. Damage is never abstract. When something goes wrong, it announces itself loudly. A failing engine changes how confidently you can navigate uneven terrain. These aren't numbers quietly dropping in a menu. They are problems that reshape how the next few minutes play out and whether you will survive or fail. The garage reinforces this focus in a very nice way. Instead of acting as a trophy room for progress, it feels like a place where consequences eventually catch up. Every return from the zone turns into a very quick post-mortem. You walk around the car, spot what survived, notice what didn't, what needs fixing, and start making these decisions now under the limited resources you have. Some fixes feel urgent, others feel like calculated risks that you feel like would be best if you sorted it later. These choices don't stay theoretical. Once you're back on the road, every unresolved issue starts chiming in. Maybe the battery has less juice than you thought that you had. Maybe the steering feels a little bit off. Maybe the car makes a noise that wasn't there before, and you have to figure out what it is. The game never spells out exactly how worried you should be, which keeps your attention locked in as you will need to figure that out for yourself. Out in the exclusion zone, the car also defines how much you can carry, how safe you feel when stepping away from the vehicle, and how quickly you can leave when the situation turns sour. Loot decisions become spatial puzzles. Do you risk overloading on loot, or do you abandon something valuable just because you don't have the time or the space? Even curiosity has a cost, when every extra stop puts more wear and tear on the vehicle. Upgrades continue this theme of careful consideration. Improvements do add new capabilities and abilities you can use to do extra things with the car, but they also introduce new constraints. Better upgrades, so say you have an armoured panel instead of a regular panel on your car, this now makes the car heavier. New tech that you could put onto your car demands more power. Your car grows more capable over time, but it never becomes careless proof, which keeps the tension alive even until the later stages of the game. By the time that this sort of upgrade system fully settles in, success stops being about how much you gathered or how far you explored. It becomes down to whether the car makes it back, and what condition it's in when you manage to get back to the garage. That focus is what makes Pacific Drive feel fundamentally different from other survival games built around tools, bases, or firepower. Each trip into the exclusion zone is self-contained. You pick a route, you enter a region, and from that moment on, there is a clock running in the background. The longer you stay, the more hostile the environment will become, and you will eventually be forced to race against time to leave. The goal of every run is simple. Leave, pretty much. That sounds obvious, but it changes how you think. You're not settling in. This place isn't home. You're not clearing out areas permanently. You are passing through places that do not want to be passed through. Progress comes from knowing when to walk away from a run, even if there's still something interesting just a little bit further down the road. That pressure works hand in hand with how the world is generated. The map rearranges itself between runs, but it never feels careless. The locations and the hazards and the points of interest form tiny stories on their own. One run might funnel you through narrow roads full of electrical anomalies. The next could drop you into terrain where you can barely see anything. You start recognising these patterns without ever feeling fully prepared. What's important is that this unpredictability always feels intentional. The zone doesn't throw chaos at you just because it wants you to scramble. It presents situations that can be read, that can be learned, provided you're paying attention and willing to actually learn it yourself. Over time, you will stop reacting to every strange sight that you see with panic and start asking questions instead. What does this thing do? How close can I get to it? Is it safe to drive past it, or should I go somewhere else? That is where the anomalies come in. Instead of traditional threats that chase or attack, the zone is filled with phenomena that follow their own rules. Some distort the space, some interfere with the electronics, some look harmless until they aren't. The game rarely explains them outright, it expects you to watch how they behave and adjust your behaviour accordingly. These anomalies don't particularly care that you yourself are even there. This exclusion zone is just where they are, and they're doing what they naturally do. It just so happens that you're there as well. It is really funny and also annoying if you get out of your car to go and loot something, you come back to your car and then you see this anomaly has grabbed your car and just taken off with it. Your car has now been stolen. The anomalies are on a crime spree. It's as if you are just in London. This turns exploration into a constant act of interpretation. You learn by observing what happens. All of this feeds back into the core loop. You venture out, you read the situation, you push your luck, and then you decide when enough is enough. Staying too long rarely ends well. Leaving early sometimes feels like a missed opportunity. The game lives inside that tension. By combining the time pressure, an unpredictable world, and hazards that reward attention rather than aggression, Pacific Drive creates a rhythm that feels closer to planning an escape than surviving indefinitely. Most survival games tend to focus on making a home. You gather resources so you can make your base a better place. That isn't the case with Pacific Drive. You gather resources so you can make your car strong enough so that you can leave. Before we do continue, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider subscribing, as it really helps me out and we upload at least one video a week. Thank you ever so much. But one of the reasons that all of this works as well as it does comes down to how the game communicates with you. The exclusion zone is quite loud in some really subtle ways. Long before anything actively interferes with you, the soundscape starts doing the heavy lifting with the electrical cackles or the dead silence. Visually, the zone keeps information just fuzzy enough to encourage caution. Weather reduces clarity, lightning shifts without warning, distant shapes look important until they aren't, and unremarkable stretches of road suddenly demand attention. The game never floods your screen with effects, but it consistently nudges your perception off balance. All of this ties into how the world handles its backstory. The answers do exist, but they're scattered, they're incomplete, and often unsatisfying. The scientists you speak with sound confident one moment and unsure the next, and their disagreements never fully resolve in a clean explanation. What you're left with is a place that resists being neatly understood. All of these ideas would fall apart instantly though, if the game didn't feel good to play, and thankfully, Pacific Drive absolutely does. Driving feels solid from the very start, which matters more than anything else in a game built around driving. But by solid, I don't mean easy. The driving actually feels pretty uncomfortable. But that's the point. You're supposed to make this car stronger, and the game does a fantastic job of making you feel that progression rather than just reading stats and have the game tell you that the car is stronger. What's especially satisfying is how clearly these upgrades change the experience. New tyres alter handling in ways that you get to choose. Do you want to be off-road? Do you want to be able to just go flying through the forest with zero pushback? Or do you want to have more of an all-round type of wheels? That's entirely up to you. The progress shows up through how the game feels moment to moment, rather than just flashing indicators. The survival systems support this without getting in the way. Resources are scarce enough to matter, but rarely so scarce that frustration ever takes over or that you feel stuck. Petrol is the best example of this, or I guess gas for you American weirdos. You'll almost never actually run out of petrol. but spotting a petrol station still feels like a small victory every single time. It's a quiet psychological trick that works beautifully. Even though you will have likely never have ran out of petrol, every single time you see a petrol station, you will stop and fill up anyway, just in case. That balance carries through the rest of the systems. You're encouraged to prepare, but you're not punished for your curiosity. The story advances at a confident pace, never really rushing, never really dragging, and crucially knowing when to stop. The ending arrives before the repetition can get too arduous, which is a rare and very welcome restraint. That said, the final stretch isn't completely frictionless and also contains my only real gripe with the game. As you get closer to the conclusion, reaching story objectives can require driving through 4 or 5 intermediary stops. Earlier on, those detours were exciting opportunities, but later in the game, especially if you've been thorough, they start to feel really thin. The resources along the way no longer matter to you. The risks are mostly known, and the drive becomes more about waiting than discovery. It doesn't ruin the experience by any means, but it does introduce small pockets of downtime where the momentum briefly stalls, which isn't really what you want when you're building up to your big finale. But even with that hiccup, the moment-to-moment gameplay remains strong from the beginning mostly to the end. Look, I'm not the biggest survival guy. This isn't my favourite genre, but I can recognise innovation when I see it. By the end of Pacific Drive, you realise the game was never trying to overwhelm you. It didn't choose spectacle, it didn't demand mastery through reflexes or perfect planning. It just built its own rhythm where the attention and the restraint mattered more. Most survival games ask how much you can endure and how strong you can become. Pacific Drive asks how well you can read a place that refuses to behave and whether you know whether it's time to let go or not. That's what makes it stand out. Just a remarkably confident design that knows exactly what kind of experience it wants and never compromises it for the sake of noise. So when people talk about unique survival games, this one definitely earns a place there, undoubtedly. One car, one road at a time, a world that stays strange no matter how familiar it becomes. And when the drive finally ends, it doesn't feel like something you conquered, it feels like something you survived long enough to leave behind. Thank you very much for making it this far into the video. If you did enjoy it, then please leave a like, as that really does help me out. It'd be nice if you could leave a comment telling me you enjoyed the video, or leave a comment telling me you didn't enjoy the video. Either is fine. And as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to subscribe because we upload at least one video a week, and we have also recently enabled memberships on the channel, so if you want to do a bit of extra support, then that option is there. There is zero pressure to do so, but you will get access to early uploads. But alas, that is all for now. I upload at least one video a week. Have a nice day, and goodbye.